Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and an Israel Institute fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here bringing you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's currently the eve of November 6, 2023 in the United States and the morning of November 7, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the aftermath of the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis are held in the Gaza Strip. The Prime Minister of Thailand today stated that his country has received photos substantiating that their citizens that are held captive by the Hamas movement and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad are alive in the Gaza Strip. So I remind everyone that in the last couple of days I've reported several times about why there was a substantial amount of Thai citizens that were kidnapped on October 7th, and the fact that Thailand is coordinating its own negotiations directly vis-a-vis Hamas, mediated by Iran, in order to possibly secure their release. So the Prime Minister of Thailand is substantiating that the hostages are alive, at least those citizens of Thailand. In addition, Secretary of State Blinken today met with the Foreign Minister of Turkey, and there were reports in Al Jazeera that the U.S. delegation under Blinken pressured Turkey to secure the release of hostages by Hamas, and that in turn they were answered that this can only be secured in exchange for mutual release of Palestinian prisoners by Israel, which is Hamas's official line. Turkey was channeling it towards the United States as well. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, there were today continuous rockets and missiles that were sent from the Gaza Strip towards the southern parts of Israel and the center of Israel, although a substantially less amount compared to previous days. So rockets targeted the Gan Yavne area, Ashdod, Lachish, and Netivot, and the whole area surrounding the Gaza Strip. And a missile landed in the waters outside Tel Aviv, and there were missiles sent towards the Shfela area. Relating to the ongoing IDF offensive on the ground, the IDF spokesperson today stated that the military is operating within Gaza City already. So in the last several days, the military has stated that it has completed its surrounding of Gaza City, and now there are reports that they are moving into the city very, very slowly. And he added the Shifa hospital is the main area of Hamas headquarters. It has been reported again and again that Hamas headquarters are in tunnels underneath the Shifa hospitals. This evening, there were reports there were light bombs that were seen all around the Shifa hospital area, and according to some reports, the IDF was firing these bombs in order to continuously drive civilians away from the areas surrounding the hospital. There were further reports stating that the IDF has been moving into the city from the north and the east, and this is corroborated by reports about where the IDF focuses bombardments last night. Mostly bombardments were in the Jabalia refugee camp and in the Beit Hanun area, and the reports state that now the IDF is going to be moving from the south and west of the Gaza City, moving further and further in. The report stated there were over 450 air raids the IDF carried out in the last 24 hours. Defense Minister Gallant today stated in a briefing that, and I'm quoting, the ground shook in Gaza in the last 24 hours. Amidst the different air raids, Wael Asafa, who was a commander of the Deir al-Balah brigade of Hamas, was assassinated. Asafa was a main figure within Hamas, and specifically within the central region of the Gaza Strip, and he was in charge of several of the units that carried out the attack on October 7th. In addition, Jamal Musa, who was the head of special security in Hamas, was also assassinated. The Palestinian Health Ministry today reported that a building in the Shifa hospital was attacked. This was denied by the IDF later on, and there were further reports that there was an attack carried out right near the Al-Quds hospital. The IDF reported that as part of its ongoing activity surrounding Gaza City, a main outpost of Hamas was uncovered, and the IDF also made public that Hamas has been using sites like mosques and a youth community center as rocket launching sites, and published several pictures substantiating this. Regarding casualties, there were 2 IDF soldiers that were reported killed in the last 24 hours. Several hundred Palestinians were reported killed. The total number of Palestinians, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip, that have been killed since the war began has exceeded 10,000. It is now 10,022, and there are over 25,000 confirmed injured, and likely many more. There are also 2,300 that are still missing underneath the rubble. And I also remind everyone that there was a media and internet blackout of the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, so these numbers are likely to increase as more and more information comes out. Moving on to the humanitarian situation, so relating to the internet communication lines, they are gradually being restored in the Gaza Strip. Today, President of the United States Biden spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu and discussed the possibility of humanitarian respites. Later on in an ABC interview, Netanyahu stated that Israel will not accept a ceasefire without any release of hostages. However, it may decide on tactical halting of the fire for a few hours here and there. So this is likely relating to something that has been rumored in the last couple of days. The United States is trying to pressure Israel to even come up with a temporary respite of an hour here and there to maybe secure the release of hostages with foreign citizenry. This may be related to that. In addition, Israel agreed with the U.S. on the need to allow more humanitarian aid in, and the U.S. warned Israel of strikes near hospitals. Reportedly, this warning came before the reports of hospitals being struck that I just stated previously. Unclear what happened there. The IDF today continued to maintain its open corridor for several hours for Gazan civilians to move southward in the Gaza Strip. So this is a corridor on the Salahuddin Highway that the IDF is opening for several hours a day and keeping it safe so that civilians can continuously flee from the north to the south. The United Nations reported today that over 5,000 people were seen traveling southward. In addition, there were reports today that 60% of medical facilities in the Gaza Strip are shut down or only partially working as a result of the fuel crisis. And relating to this, the United Arab Emirates today announced that it will establish a field hospital in the Gaza Strip and that 5 cargo planes have left Abu Dhabi for El Arish, where they're going to enter the Gaza Strip from Rafah. So presumably this has been coordinated with Israel and with Egypt. France is negotiating with Egypt the establishment of a field hospital in Sinai, and it was reported today that 17 Palestinians crossed over the border from Gaza into Egypt in order to receive medical attention. There were no reports specifically today about how many trucks with humanitarian aid entered the Gaza Strip. However, it was reported that since October 21st, a total of 451 trucks entered the Gaza Strip. I remind everyone that prior to the war, 500 trucks a day entered the Gaza Strip carrying food, water, and medical supplies. Now, with the humanitarian crisis in the war since October 21, 451 trucks have entered in total. Moving on to the West Bank, in a second conversation that happened today between Biden and Netanyahu, it was quoted that Biden, I'm quoting, emphasized that radical settlers must be held accountable for violent crimes. This relates to the wave of settler terrorism that is being waged against the Palestinians. Amidst this, it was also reported later that Israel made a promise to the United States that M16s and other weapons that are currently being transferred from the U.S. to Israel will not be given to alert squads in the West Bank. The U.S. is very concerned that these weapons will be used to terrorize Palestinians by settlers. There was an attack today carried out by a Palestinian in Jerusalem. A 16-year-old Palestinian from the East Jerusalem town of Isawiya carried out a stabbing attack in the old city of Jerusalem. A Magav soldier was stabbed and killed. It was reported that she had fought defending the kibbutz Sa'ad down south on October 7th, and she died from her wounds today after this attack. In addition, one Palestinian was killed in Beit Fajar in confrontations with the IDF, and there are reports of several other Palestinians who were injured in the Khalkhul area. Some reports say that one Palestinian was killed there. That is currently unconfirmed. 4 Palestinians were killed in Tulkarem. This is a city more north in the West Bank. The IDF and Shabak stated that they were on their way under Hamas guidance to carry out an attack, and the car was targeted by a drone. One of these people who were killed is Izzadin Awad, who is a commander of the Al-Qassam brigades in Tulkarem, along with other top-ranking officials of Hamas in the West Bank. A total of 38 Palestinians were arrested today throughout the West Bank. Responding to all of this, the Al-Qassam Martyrs Brigades, which is the military wing of Fatah, which is a branch of the PLO, stated that they will take revenge against the IDF and against settlers for this latest wave of atrocities. In addition, it was reported today that the leader of religious Zionism, Bezalel Smotrich, who is one of the most hawkish figures in Israel's government, is demanding of the government that it not allow Palestinians to harvest their olive groves in areas near settlements, specifically referencing the violence of October 7th and saying this may happen again in the West Bank. This is a very contentious issue. The olive groves that are in and around settlements have constantly been a source of friction between settlers and Palestinians. Over the last year, there have been more and more instances of violence where Palestinians are saying that they cannot get to their harvest areas as a result of settler violence. Now the leader of religious Zionism, Bezalel Smotrich, wants to make this official and demanding of the government that Palestinians officially not be allowed to harvest their olive groves if they are near settlements. Remains to be seen what will happen there. Moving on to the north, there were continuous rockets and missiles sent by Hezbollah today towards the Shtula and the Western Galilee area. The IDF retaliated against a range of Hezbollah targets with airstrikes and artillery fire. Hezbollah stated that 2 more of its activists were killed. A total of 63 Hezbollah activists have been killed since the war began. In addition, there was a barrage of 30 rockets sent towards Haifa and the Krayot area. This is as far south as rockets have come from the north in this current war. The rockets also targeted Nahariya and Akko. Importantly, Hamas in Lebanon claimed responsibility for these attacks, not Hezbollah. The IDF retaliated against a wide variety of targets within Lebanon. In addition, the United Kingdom today evacuated some of its staff from its embassy in Lebanon, citing that the situation is unstable and could erupt at any time. Moving on to some of the regional developments today. As a result of the different attacks that have been carried out against U.S. bases in Syria and Iraq, the Pentagon today announced that 46 of its soldiers have been injured in these various attacks since the war began. In addition, the New York Times reported today that the U.S. sent messages directly to Iran and Hezbollah that it will personally intervene if either of these actors, Hezbollah or Iran, attack Israel. Remind everyone that in addition to the ongoing flow of arms and the aircraft carriers and the soldiers that the U.S. has sent to the area. Yesterday, the Pentagon reported that the U.S. has sent a nuclear submarine into the area as well. Now, New York Times is reporting that the U.S. has officially warned Iran, Hezbollah, that it will respond if those groups or actors attack Israel. In addition, the Houthi rebels in Yemen today stated that they launched a barrage of drones towards, I'm quoting, sensitive targets within Israel. There were no reports of any attacks that occurred within Israel. No interceptions are reported. Unclear what happened there. Moving on to some of the political developments, the Prime Minister of Bulgaria is currently visiting Israel as part of this ongoing travel of different state leaders to Israel to express sympathy for the October 7th attack, and as part of the counter trend of different states and countries around the world that are severing their ties with Israel. South Africa today recalled its diplomatic staff from Israel, citing the violence in Gaza and saying that it is unclear if the staff will return at this time. The Prime Minister of Jordan today stated, I'm quoting, "Any attempt to uproot Palestinians from the Gaza Strip or the West Bank is a red line and will be considered a declaration of war." So Jordan has been very vocal since the war began, siding with Hamas and the Palestinians, and this is now, as the farthest it has gone, stating that if there will be some sort of evacuation of Palestinians from either the West Bank or the Gaza Strip, it will be considered a declaration of war. The UN Security Council met today to discuss the ongoing escalation. There were calls for ceasefire and increased humanitarian aids from the Security Council. The UN Secretary General today stated that there is an immediate need for a humanitarian ceasefire. He said the situation in Gaza is a catastrophe and that the Gaza Strip is turning into a graveyard for children. He condemned Israeli attacks as well as condemning Hamas's use of civilians as human shields. U.S. officials today stated in conversations with Israel that Israel has time to continue its campaign, however, that the aggressive aerial bombings are likely going to have to come to an end. So this is part of the ongoing debate in the United States about how much support to give Israel on the one hand, on the other hand, to try to curtail the loss of Palestinian life. So the United States is signaling to Israel that the campaign can continue, but the aerial bombings may have to be slowed down. In addition, the Wall Street Journal today reported that the U.S. will transfer to Israel the accurate spice bombs. These are far more accurate ammunitions at the expense of $320 million US, and it is possibly associated with the United States' attempt to continuously lower the amount of Palestinian casualties. The State Department in the United States today officially condemned the statements made yesterday by Israeli Minister Amichai Eliyahu, where he called to nuke the Gaza Strip, and he said that this is simply going to add fuel to the fire, and there were specific calls to Prime Minister Netanyahu to fire Minister Amichai Eliyahu. In addition, Politico today reported that in a leaked document from the internal State Department, one can see that there is growing resentment among different diplomats about Biden's approach to the war, stating that the U.S. needs to be far more critical of Israel's different bombardments. This may be all part of this mounting pressure in the United States to try to curtail Israel's aerial bombardments. And in ongoing political development, with the convening of the Summit of Organization of Islamic Cooperation in Saudi Arabia, the Iranian delegation is going to be headed by President Raisi himself. This is going to be the first top-level Iranian official to set foot on Saudi Arabia since the two countries re-established their relationship. So it remains to be seen how this is going to affect regional developments as well. We're moving on to some speculation regarding the future of the Gaza Strip. There were reports today that after Secretary of State Blinken's visit to Israel, there's growing concern within the United States that Israel does not have an exit strategy from the war. Specifically, it was noted that after Blinken spoke with Netanyahu and asked the Israeli cabinet questions about what is the future of the Gaza Strip, Blinken got the impression that the endgame has barely been discussed. In the same ABC interview Netanyahu gave, he was asked about who will govern Gaza after Hamas. He stated, and I quote, "Those who don't want to continue the way of Hamas. And I think Israel, for an indefinite period, will have the overall security responsibility because we've seen what happens when we don't have it." Relating to the future of the Gaza Strip, the president of the European Commission today gave a speech in Brussels. After calling on Hamas to release all hostages and expressing sadness for all the loss of life, she stated that aid for the Gaza Strip is going to increase by 25 million euros and that the EU is working on creating a sea corridor from Cyprus to the Gaza Strip. But importantly, she also laid out 5 principles for the future of the Gaza Strip. The first was that Gaza cannot be a haven for terrorists anymore, adding that possibly UN peacekeepers or a UN peacekeeping force would be an option to facilitate this. Second, Hamas cannot continue to govern the Gaza Strip. I'm quoting, "There must be one Palestinian Authority and one Palestinian country." Third, Israel cannot have security control in the long term. Again, I'm quoting, "Gaza is part of any future Palestinian state." The fourth principle was that there cannot have forced immigration of Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip. And fifth, There cannot be a continuous siege in the Gaza Strip, and she added, this has proven to be a failed policy. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.